Hi everyone and welcome back to yet another episode of Kathor Vaani brought to you by the Student Alumni Committee of IIM Rohtak. Today we have with us Mr. Kshitij Garg, who is the Equity Research Analyst working with the Global Investment Research Division of Goldman Sachs. He completed his MBA from our college in 2016 with finance as his major. He also has two bachelor's degrees, one in computing from National University of Singapore and the other in economics from Delhi University. He also has a record of working with top-notch companies like Wipro and CRISIL. He was also recently featured in Indian Express as one among the most successful and talented India's national school board toppers over 20 years. We are extremely privileged to have you here with us, sir. Looking forward for a wonderful session with you. Handing it over to Beena.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
So, my first question to you is that being featured in Indian Express as one among the most successful board toppers of India, how do you see your journey so far?
The article was written by someone who spent a lot of time, tracking down people who had, secured the first position in either 10th or 12th over the last 25 years. The idea for that article wasn't so much to highlight what our accomplishments are, but the idea was more to sort of throw a light on the education system in India, how it's evolved, what are the challenges that people who did succeed in the existing system, what are the challenges that faced, and what are some of the changes that they would have liked to have seen during their time and would like to see happen even now. Having said that, like it obviously feels nice, when anyone sort of celebrates your past accomplishments. My journey has been it's been a long one, I would say. First studying in Singapore, then coming back here, studying economics, changing sort of fields from computer science towards more of economics and finance. But I think that's where my interest lay, which is why I decided even to pursue an MBA in finance. And I like where I am right now. I like the work that I'm doing, and I think it's been a good journey so far. And I'm excited about where it'll take me in the future.
Okay. Sir, the next question is that equity research market has been a fascinating one for all of us particularly interested in finance. So, can you just brief us about this sector, this field, which is very demanding?
Yes. So, one of the things about equity research, at least in India, is it's quite a niche field. I would say it doesn't employ a lot of people. There's very few large players in the market who do equity research, and then you have your small and mid cap firms who also do equity research that is more focused on Indian markets. So the large private investment banks, they have coverage of both, Americas, Europe, Asia, all sorts of markets, right? So, like I said, it's a relatively niche market. It is demanding. The work is very exciting. I, as a personal aside, I would say that I get to employ a lot of the finance that I studied over the years, and especially when I majored in finance. The kind of subjects that we studied actually are used in equity research. We have to do valuations, we have to look at broader market, we have to look at indices, and it's not just about equity research, not just about doing the right kind of research. It's also about presenting it in a marketable fashion, right? So there's a bit of marketing involved there as well. But yeah, if you're looking for a cushy 9 to 5 job, this is probably not the profile for you. But if you want something that challenges you, that keeps you on your toes, something where you are employing your mental faculties on a sort of regular basis, then I would say this is the right sector for you.
Okay, sir. So the next question, maybe that's a
Yeah.
request from us. Can you take us through your work
Yeah.
profile at Goldman Sachs and also brief us how current market changes has affected the sector?
I work as an equity research analyst in Goldman Sachs. Mainly, I cover the European markets. So the equity research in general is split into people who cover specific sectors like industrial sectors, right? So there'll be people who are researching the auto industry. There'll be people who are researching maybe the payments industry. For me, it's slightly different. The role involves looking at broader markets, and it's more about um, like looking at tactical trades and strategic sort of 1 year, 2 year market movements. That's pretty much what I can say. Um, in terms of, sorry, what was the next part?
The next part was
How's the industry sector changed, right?
yes, sir.
So this is in reference, you're talking about the pandemic, right?
Yes, sir. I mean, particularly it has
Okay.
affected all the industries. So what has been the changes this sector?
Okay. To be very honest, equity research has been sort of insulated from the negative effects of the of the pandemic, simply because see, equity research thrives on volatility, right? The more volatile the market, the more research we are able to put out. So there's more events happening in the markets, whether it be related to a specific stock, whether you're talking about the economy as a whole. So whenever the markets are more volatile, uh, equity research analysts have more and more stuff to write about. So it was, I think it's been a very busy year for equity research. Um, I'm not sure, but hopefully it's also been a lucrative year. And yeah, I have a couple of friends in some other equity research firms as well. And I haven't heard anything from them that would that would imply any sort of negative impacts from the pandemic, except for the fact that all of us have been working from home for almost a year. But yeah, work has been pretty busy, I would say, in the sector.
Okay. Sir, the next question is something that will help all the people who are interested in finance. Like being from the finance
Yeah,
background yourself, can you suggest some career option that one has
yeah.
if is interested in it? And also the basic skills that one requires if is particularly interested in equity research development.
Okay. So off the bat, like after doing finance, especially MBA finance, um, see, there's a couple of areas, right? I think, at least in my time, most the roles that used to come to our campus used to be more accounting related, right? Um, so that's one area you can go to, right? Audit, taxation, accounting. That's one area that you can go to. If you're interested in the other side, which is your investment banking or equity research or portfolio management, that's your second option. And I guess the options there are slightly more limited, simply by virtue of the fact that there's not a lot of M&A that happens, uh, in India. If you compare it to the American and European markets, I would say. Um, but and obviously the third space I would say is commercial banking, right? We do. There's a lot of people we know that go into commercial banks, like consumer facing banks, retail banks. So I think those are primarily the three areas that a finance professional can look at within India. Now, specifically, if you want to look at a career in equity research, um, I would say one of the major skills that at least I lacked as soon as I graduated from my MBA was the fact that this proficiency in Excel, right? The kind of proficiency that I now possess is something that was completely lacking when I graduated. I mean, I knew how to work Excel. We did modeling and we did basic stuff on Excel, but complex formulas, I had no idea about how to apply complex formulas. Now our sheets contain formulas that run up to like 4 or 5 lines, the formula bar. At that point in time, I had no idea how to write such formulas. And those sort of skills, how to be quick in Excel, how to apply like sort of automated formulas that can do calculations on the fly. That's something that's, I think, an MBA in finance should definitely acquire by the time he or she is graduating, because it's you'll eventually have to pick it up on the job, right? And if there's a module, or if there's a subject in one semester that can just focus on developing advanced Excel skills, I think that would be really helpful. Another thing is, at least in equity research, is that you need to write a lot, right? You need to be very verbose in English. You need to know how to present your ideas in language that's investor friendly, and at the same time conveys as much information as possible in as few words, right? So I remember we had this course called Business Analysis and Valuation. I don't know if you guys still have it, but the idea of the entire course was for us to value a stock. So we built financial models from scratch, and we used to come up with a target price and a rating for that stock. We used to recommend whether or not that stock is a buy or a sell. And in that course, we also had to make a one pager. I think it was one pager, where in that one page you have to pitch to a potential investor why they should agree to your recommendation of buying or selling that stock. Now, in equity research, that one page is the cover page, right? But then that page is followed by about 40 pages of detailed analysis and insights, right? So I think writing that one page where you just write hard-hitting insights is obviously a skill that you should possess. But then you should also possess the skill to write detailed analysis and insight as well. So you see how there's a catch-22 there, right? So you're not just expected to be very brief and succinct in your writing. You also expected to write long-winded explanations of how you came to your conclusion. So I think writing and proficiency in Excel, those are two things that you should definitely try to gain.
So the next question I have for you is that we have learned about a lot of biases in behavior finance, which may affect our decision making process. So as an analyst, how do you keep your biases in check? And also, what among them are the most important? Do you think are the must to keep in check?
Biases. Okay. So I think there's this one bias that you definitely have to keep in check. Where what's it called? I think it's called self-attribution. Where if a stock performs well, right? If a recommendation performs well, you think it's because of you, because of what you did, what your recommendation and your analysis. But if a stock performs badly, you think it's due to luck, or it's because market conditions were such. So that's a trap that you should seriously avoid, because what ends up happening then is that whenever your recommendation works, you sort of stick to that sort of analysis, right? And whenever your recommendation hasn't worked, the analysis or the work you've done in those periods is the kind of analysis you tend to avoid, which is wrong. You need to look at a stock's performance over a slightly longer period of time, and you need to work out exactly how it differs from how you expected it to perform, right? So self-attribution, where right, you give yourself praise for everything good, but don't accept the blame for what's bad. I think that's something that you should definitely avoid, right? Because as we all know, equity research all about fundamental analysis, right? So you keep your eye on the fundamentals. Don't try to sort of predict small movements in prices. That's not your job. in equity research, the idea is to provide investors a recommendation based on core fundamentals on about a stock. So, yeah, I think that's the most important trap you should avoid. Um, was there a second part to that question?
Sir, I mean that is also answered. The most important one
Okay.
that you think. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think that's the most important one.
yes, sir. So the next question is that as a analyst, have you faced any challenge and how do you, I mean, manage that?
Uh, yeah, like I said, the first one was proficiency in Excel, and I used to think that I was very proficient, but when I came into the industry, I realized that I wasn't. Like now I'm at a point where I don't even need to touch the mouse when I'm operating Excel. So I think that's where you should aim to be. That's just relates to speed, right? But um, another thing is in this day and age, I think one of the skills that you should definitely possess is you should know a little bit of programming or a little bit of coding, because I think that's where the future lies, even within the broader world of finance. Um, just the ability to either code in Excel, make macros. That's the starting point, right? You should know how to build macros. You should know how to work with larger files, because one of the reasons is just saves time when you automate a lot of these things, and the other is there's a lot of analysis that simply can't be done without a code, without an algorithm behind it, right? Like you can't run loops through Excel, and loops there's a very common thing in programming or coding. That's something that's required sometimes when you're doing sort of big analysis like multivariate regression, and which is why I said at least a basic proficiency in coding is something that you should try to acquire. So what was the next challenge that I faced? Yeah, another challenge in equity research that you face initially is that um, initially, right, when you start off in the space, um, there's a lot of there's a big sort of gap between the amount of time you spend on research and analysis and the output that comes out of it. So, for example, you've worked an entire week, right? You've spent almost 10 to 12 hours daily work on some sort of analysis, maybe on, I don't know, any stock, right? And you spend close to 60 hours on some analysis, and the output is one small paragraph in a report of 20 pages or 40 pages, right? And you tend to wonder, like there's this big analysis that I did, which had all these wonderful insights. I mean, what you think are wonderful insights. And then, someone senior to you, maybe, the senior analyst on the team says, okay, fine, this is very good. And they'll appreciate your work. But then the part they choose to highlight is a very small one out of that, right? And this is something that happens like fairly often. And that's why I said it's a very demanding career, right? Because there's a lot of legwork that goes behind, just providing a simple two-line insight. That legwork is something that potential investors will not see. So you have to understand at that point in time that effort of 60 hours wasn't in vain. It wasn't a waste, because at the end of the day, the most actionable insight is actually going out to investors. And obviously, when you spend 60 hours doing some sort of analysis, it's always a learning experience, right? I say, even if those 60 hours did not lead to any actionable insight, it's still a learning experience, right? So you fail and you learn and you pick yourself up again. So just be very open to um, not seeing your work being presented forward. Also be ready to fail a lot, because that's okay. I mean, initially, especially when you join the space, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to ask a lot of questions. It's okay to see your work being sort of discarded, but you just keep pushing and pushing, and eventually you'll get to the point where you know you have some idea from the word go that, okay, if I spend like a week on this analysis, these are the sort of insights that I should be coming out, right? Because you, as in when you gain experience in the space, you sort of start understanding what a potential investor would want. So yeah, I think those were the main challenges that I face and that anyone who wants to enter the space should look out for.
Okay, sir. Sir, this one is the last question from my side. It is about
Yeah.
would you like to recommend some books or authors to our audience?
So I think one of the things that you should definitely read is anything that Warren Buffett says, right? Because that guy has, his whole career in investment is a sort of example, and I think he has a very similar perspective on stocks and equity in general that an equity research analyst also has. He looks at very fundamental things, right? He's not very concerned with short-term price movements or buying the dip or selling the peak. Those sort of things he's not very concerned with. That's not something that you should overly concern yourself when you're an equity research analyst. So you should try to follow him. Maybe read his biography. Another one that I have found helpful is just if you can, try and subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, because there have been times where the writers in that newspaper have written a very, very hard hitting and very sort of on the point articles about the markets. And like I myself have been surprised at the fact that people in the space who actually watch markets and observe markets on a daily basis were a step behind, the journalists at Wall Street Journal. So I think that's something that you should definitely try to read.